Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Aziza Hassan, and I am the Executive Director of New Ground, a Muslim-Jewish Partnership for Change. The Sisterhood of Salam Shalom, the Muslim-Jewish Advisory Council, Interfaith Ventures, and New Ground all came together weeks ago, knowing that this moment demands more of us. Each of us are members of MJAC, and with hate on the rise, our futures depend on one another, and we need to start acting like it. I went into a Trader Joe's some time ago, and I felt this surge of anxiety, seeing these empty shelves that are usually well stocked. The anxiety came over me, and especially continued to build as I traveled to 4 other grocery stores, only to find barren shelves. In each of these stores, others had cleared out the milk, the bread, the eggs, the flour, the sugar, the yeast, and the toilet paper. And I started to feel this tension inside of my chest. Others are now competitors, even adversaries. And now individuals of Asian American descent are bearing the brunt of this otherness, reporting higher rates of discrimination. A recent headline reads, "Stabbing of an Asian American 2-year-old and her family was a virus-fueled hate crime." And yet this virus does discriminate against gender, ethnicity, or other identifiers. It spreads quickly in communities across our globe. And it's doing more than just make us physically sick. It is influencing our emotions and how we see one another, in many cases as threats. With anti-Semitism and Islamophobia and hate on the rise, we must find a way to manage our risks of COVID-19 and raise our voices to affirm diversity and one another, which is why we're here with you and why we're so grateful that you're here with us. Our program is going to include leading voices from across our nation. We will begin with a prayer, followed by collective advocacy, digital citizenship, social cohesion amidst the social distancing, connecting with one another in breakout rooms, and closing out with a prayer and brief remarks. As our program unfolds, we encourage you to listen and to contemplate. How do you see yourself raising your voice in the months ahead? Because our collective future matters, and we can rise through this stronger together. Closed captioning is available if you would like to enable it. Click on closed caption at the bottom of your screen. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce Rabbi Sarah Bassin. Rabbi Bassin of Temple Emmanuel of Beverly Hills also serves on the boards of Upstart and New Ground, a Muslim-Jewish Partnership for Change. She's a thought leader and an innovator who stays the course even and especially when the going gets tough. Rabbi Sarah Bassin.
God, it's the first time in a while that we've gotten a really good look at ourselves in the mirror. When we've been compelled to face every blemish and wound and scar staring back at us in our body politic. You see, we ran out of concealer and can no longer run to the drugstore or order some for next day delivery. And there's nothing to cover up the divides of race and class, privilege and vulnerability, hate and narcissism. The flaws we have allowed to fester now stare back at us, revealed with a painful clarity in the naked light of this pandemic. We stand in front of a mirror, truly seeing ourselves for the first time in a while, more damaged and more broken than we thought. But God, there's a blessing in not being able to cover this up. There's a blessing in not being able to look away. There's a blessing in seeing our flaws. There's a blessing in seeing. Perhaps we'll find the wisdom to transform our clarity of vision into collective action for our body politic, no longer concealing our flaws, but actually mending them. Then we can begin to heal. In this moment, staring at ourselves in the mirror. We do not ask for you to fix us. We do not ask for you to find our voices and our purpose for us. That is our work to do. You call us to look beneath what we have concealed, to what we need to heal. But you also call us to look a deeper level below, beneath what is broken, to what is holy and what is sacred within. We don't ask for you to do this work for us. We ask you for the resilience and the strength not to look away, to look into our ultimate core, to seek you.
Thank you, Rabbi, for those beautiful and moving words. I'm Ari Gordon, and along with my partner, Natalia Mahmoud, we oversee the Muslim Jewish Advisory Council, MJAC. MJAC is a national civil society coalition co-convened by American Jewish Committee and Islamic Society of North America. MJAC bridges social divides for the goods of all Americans. Our national council and 11 regional councils advocate on issues of shared concern and highlight the essential role of Jews and Muslims as part of the social fabric of America. Our network of hundreds of leaders around the country represent diverse professional fields, many national and ethnic backgrounds, and we are doggedly bipartisan in our membership and our advocacy. Our membership includes all of the co-organizers today who we're grateful to partner with. You can learn more about MJAC at www.muslimjewishadvocacy.org, and while you're there, click on Take Action to raise your voice with us. I'm proud to say that what began as an experiment 4 years ago has been successful. Hate crimes legislation is stronger in this country because Muslims and Jews chose to advocate together. Our government takes the threat of domestic terrorism more seriously because Muslims and Jews put aside differences to raise our voice together. And that's why I'm delighted to introduce Amy Spitalnik to teach us about advocacy. Amy is a seasoned advocate and a trailblazer in the fight against hate and white supremacy. Her detailed bio is on your screen, but she's served in various professional roles for the mayor of New York City, in the office of the Attorney General of New York, and for the New York State Senate. Amy currently serves as Executive Director of Integrity First for America, an organization that works hard every day to protect American democracy from those who seek to dismantle the norms that keep it strong. Amy, thank you for being with us today. We look forward to learning from you.
Thanks so much for having me. It's very easy to feel scared, angry, and helpless right now. We're living at a time when neo-Nazis storm an American city chanting things like Sieg Heil, causing death and injury, when white supremacists murder Jews and Muslims as they pray in synagogue or mosque. We know that in 2018, right-wing extremists killed more people in the U.S. than any year since 1995, which was the year of the Oklahoma City bombing. While we know how bad hate crime reporting is in certain ways, the facts are certainly clear. Hate is on the rise. We can't ignore that. And during coronavirus, as we've already heard, it's only gotten worse as these extremists try to use social media to spread anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, and anti-Asian conspiracies, including propaganda that likens Jews and Muslims to vermin, and literal Nazi slogans that we've seen at anti-public health protests. This hate can very quickly turn into real-world violence. In the last 2 months alone, we've seen white supremacists try to turn the virus into a bioweapon, try to blow up a hospital treating coronavirus patients, and try to burn down an assisted living facility. We've already heard about the alarming rise in anti-Asian and other hate crimes. All of this feels surreal, as it should. But it is real, and nothing about it is accidental. Each attack is part of a cycle of violence in which each is used to inspire the next one. And that's where our work at Integrity First for America comes in. We're so proud to be supporting 10 incredibly brave plaintiffs as they take on the neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and hate groups responsible for the August 2017 violence in Charlottesville. I'm telling you their story because it really informs so much about the rise of white supremacy, because Charlottesville was not an isolated incident, but rather a flashpoint in this broader rise of hate. It's so important to understand that the violence that unfolded in Charlottesville and that we've seen since are no accidents. In Charlottesville, for months in advance, the defendants meticulously planned what happened via a social media platform called Discord and other channels. Under the guise of organizing a Unite the Right rally to protest the removal of a Confederate statue, they were, in fact, planning a weekend of violence. On their social media channels, they talked about every detail in advance: what to wear, how to sew a swastika onto a flag, and whether they could drive over protesters with cars and then claim self-defense, which is, of course, exactly what they did. Next stop, Charlottesville. Final stop, Auschwitz, they wrote. And that is what happened. The violence they promised came. On Friday, August 11th, 2017, they marched military style on the University of Virginia, wearing matching uniforms, carrying lit tiki torches to be evocative of the Ku Klux Klan and the Nazis. They chanted, "Jews will not replace us," "Blood and soil," "White lives matter," and they surrounded a small group of peaceful counter-protesters at the Thomas Jefferson statue, throwing fuel and lit torches, kicking and punching them. One of our plaintiffs said he thought he was going to die that night. The next day, it only got worse. These neo-Nazis and white supremacists descended on downtown Charlottesville. They explicitly called this a military operation, talking about everything from formation to commands to fighting techniques, and they wore matching uniforms and carried military tools like shields, guns, and other weapons. They then surrounded the small local synagogue on Shabbat morning with semi-automatic rifles, swastikas, and other Nazi symbols and chanted "Sieg Heil." They discussed torching those Jewish monsters. Congregants and Torah scrolls had to be evacuated out the back door. One of the details that sticks with me most is how the synagogue was home to a Torah scroll saved from Nazi Germany, and in 2017, in an American city, that Torah scroll was once again under Nazi threat. And while the synagogue survived, we know how the rest of the day unfolded, with extensive violence, culminating in James Fields driving his car into a crowd of peaceful counter-protesters, killing Heather Heyer and injuring many others, exactly as promised. And so on behalf of a coalition of Charlottesville community members injured, we're taking these neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and hate groups to court for the violence that they planned. Our federal lawsuit takes on the 24 defendants who are responsible. It uses a number of civil rights statutes, most notably something called the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871, passed nearly 150 years ago by the Reconstructionist Congress to protect recently freed slaves, and more recently used to protect against racially motivated violent conspiracies like these. And we're headed to trial this fall. Our plaintiffs are 10 community members injured. The defendants are a who's who of this violent movement. I'm sure you know many of their names, like Richard Spencer, Andrew Anglin, Identity Europa, Vanguard America, and more. And we are moving full steam ahead. The court has dismissed their efforts to block the case. Many have faced increasing sanctions, including one who was thrown in jail. And we are ensuring that they're facing true accountability for their actions. We believe this case is important in so many ways, and it really is illustrative of the crisis of white supremacy that we're facing. This case is important for our plaintiffs who deserve justice. It's important to ensuring that accountability. James Fields didn't act alone, and all who conspired must be held accountable. And it's important for this country. You won't be surprised to learn that the defendants that we're taking on are at the center of this much larger violent white supremacist movement. The same bigoted conspiracy theories we saw in Charlottesville, often promulgated online, are central to this cycle of recent attacks. And each attack is used to inspire the next. The Pittsburgh shooter communicated on Gab with some of the Charlottesville leaders before killing 11 Jews at Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. The Christchurch mosque shooter, who killed dozens of Muslims a year ago in New Zealand, painted onto his gun a symbol first popularized by one of our defendants. And on the cycle goes. Our case somehow is the only major legal effort to take on the leaders of this movement. We believe it can bankrupt and dismantle them. And when we win a jury verdict at a trial, when their peers make clear that their behavior has no place here, it will send a clear and powerful message about the urgency of the fight against hate and show that there are very real consequences for this sort of violent bigotry with national impacts that go well beyond Charlottesville. We know that this case isn't a silver bullet. We know that taking on violent white supremacy will also require broad, comprehensive action, including policy changes like the No Hate Act, and so much more to ensure that the crisis of violent extremism is treated with the urgency and given the resources it warrants. It means ensuring that law enforcement can effectively use the tools that they have and holding them accountable to do so. It means pushing the private sector to take action to ensure extremists aren't giving free rein on social media to spread their hate and their violence, and creating accountability there. So yes, it's very easy to feel scared and angry and helpless right now, but you don't have to. I'm the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, and their story is like that of many. Faced with the unthinkable rise of hate and violence, they didn't have any good options, so all they could do was the bare minimum to survive. Their whole families were wiped out. I think about their story every single day, but here's the difference. Unlike my grandparents and so many other prior generations, we live in a country built on the rule of law, and the idea of representative democracy. We have a justice system, and we have rights, and they are meant to protect us, and we can use them, so we are. But we can't do it alone. We need your help. There are 3 concrete things you can do right now, and I believe they will be popping up on the screen right in front of you. There you go. You can join us as we sue a Nazi. You can go to integrityfirstforamerica.org, add your name to our 10,000 Voices for Charlottesville, and show our plaintiffs that you have their back as we take the leaders of this violent movement to court. You can spread the word. On our website, we have a clergy toolkit and an activist toolkit that you can use to bring awareness of the crisis of white supremacy and violent hate to your community. Feel free to reach out to us as well if other information would be helpful. And you can call out white supremacy and hate when you see it online and on social media, and of course in person. That is so important. We will persist. We are going to beat these extremists, and we're going to do it together. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Amy, for all your work. Hi, everyone. My name is Mohammed, and I run a youth-led nonprofit incubator called Interfaith Ventures. We produce new products and programs that promote interfaith unity and dialogue. So we'll host a dinner, a Shabbat Salam dinner on one night, and then go into the kitchen and produce our hummus for all of us, or our famous halal and kosher interfaith meat on another night. We have hosted our fair share of programs online and offline around the country. So our next conversation is so relevant because I get to introduce you to the master of digital citizenship, Amanda Qureshi. Now, Amanda is a professional digital media and marketing strategist, an educator, a writer, an all-around social entrepreneur. She's the founder of the Institute for Digital Civic Culture and advocates for women's rights, for free press, and of course, digital privacy. Thank you, Amanda, for joining us. Let's all give her some claps. Please, Amanda, take it away.
Thank you. That was an amazing introduction, and I don't think that I'm worthy, but I really appreciate it. Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you for inviting me to be here today and talk about something that I think is really important, something that I'm very passionate about, and that is digital civics. What does it mean for us to engage online? What does it mean for us to inhabit online spaces? And we have very little time, and so I just wanted to introduce a very simple, but I think paradigm-shifting concept that that I always start with when I'm doing my trainings, and that is the idea of spaces, online spaces, right? Digital spaces. We use the internet and we use social media and all these platforms at this point kind of like tools. We think of them as tools, right? Like this is here to serve my purpose, and it's me using it to do what I want to do. But in fact, if we look at the internet as a virtual space, right, I think that will serve us better as we attempt to get things done, right, as we attempt to work with other people, because really that's what we're trying to do, right? The internet isn't just a huge library where we go for information. It's a space where we convene people, and in all kinds of different ways that have all kinds of different purposes. And the main point of this conversation that we're having today that I want to share with you is around, if we're planning on raising our voices, if we're engaged in activism going forward in the next year, what can we expect from the spaces online where we're doing that work? Right? And so I give a very simple example, which is, the difference between being in your living room with maybe 10 people, right? Like a Sisterhood of Salam Shalom chapter meeting, right? It's very intimate. Everyone knows each other. They've had repeated engagement with one another over a long period of time. There are shared norms. There are shared values. There is a shared purpose, and the conversations that can happen in that space are much deeper, right? You can be more vulnerable if you are in a space where you trust other people. Now, if you were to try to hold a meeting like that in the middle of, say, Times Square, it would be really hard to do, right? It would be very distracting. And furthermore, random people who may either be, careless or who may not like you can bust into the middle of your circle and, say and do terrible things and threatening things. And you would have a hard time feeling like you could be vulnerable, like you could actually have important and deep conversations in a space like Times Square, right? And so the I use that example because we can do that online, right? We can create spaces that are much more intimate. And it doesn't necessarily just mean a smaller size, but also we can have better privacy settings. We can carve out places where we can have repeated conversations, or we can go on a big, wide open public platform that's very porous, where we have almost no idea who is listening, following along, watching, where people who are anonymous can just walk into the conversation virtually and, be abusive or otherwise. And so, um, I just want to say, I can't see my timer. So okay. So we want to make sure that we are using these spaces in the best possible way. There are lots of threats, and we think of these threats like, like hackers and whatever. And yes, those are threats. There are bad people that want to do bad things. But there's also other things that are like disinformation, distraction, and deflection that can come from people that seem almost, like us. And so we have to be vigilant, not just against the people that look bad and look like they're scary, but then also people that present as like us or part of our community. You can't take anything for granted online. And so with that, I want to offer you 3 key takeaways, things that you can very practically do right now. 1, go in and perform an audit of your social spaces. Look at everybody that you're connected to and really think about, do you know all these people, right? And not just on your personal profiles, but any Facebook groups that you're part of, or any online communities. Do you know those people, and what do you feel comfortable sharing with all of those people, right? And if they're people that you don't know, how much do you feel comfortable sharing? Be really conscious about that. The second is to go in and really get cozy, get comfortable with your social media platforms, with the places where you spend time online. Understand those privacy settings. What does everything mean on there? If you don't know, look it up. Google has lots of information, right? Just very basic information about what all these privacy settings do. And it is an important thing to be able to know how and where to protect yourself online, right? This is very basic, but it's something that a lot of us just take for granted. We think that we're sitting at home, in our pajamas with our cell phone or our laptop, and that's where we are. But really, when we go online, we're being exposed to a very large audience, right? A very broad audience, and many of them we don't know. And then finally, I highly recommend, as you're doing this work online, as you're raising your voice, to take a break whenever you feel angry or upset or anxious, because being online is like going to a space, and there are profound implications mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And you need to be able to take care of yourself and step away when it's time, when you feel yourself getting to that point.
Thank you, Amanda. You are our rock star. I'm Cheryl Olitsky, the co-founder and the executive director of the Sisterhood of Salam Shalom. I welcome the hundreds and hundreds of you that are with us today. The Sisterhood of Salam Shalom is a movement. It's a movement of Muslim and Jewish women and teenage girls, now numbering about 8,600, with the goal of building relationships, and because of those relationships, taking care of each other to put an end to hate. And it is my absolute pleasure today to introduce my friend, to introduce our teacher, Dr. Sim Ranjeet Singh. Simran personifies to the max what it means to see the world through each other's eyes, what it means to embrace social cohesion and to find gratitude in everything that surrounds us. You could see how accomplished Simran is from his bio. Simran is an incredible educator, an activist, a writer, and a scholar, regularly teaching and speaking about issues of diversity, inclusion, and equity. I would love to tell you so much more. I know we don't have the time, but what you may not know is that Simran uses his personal stories, his daddy jokes, his love for pop culture to connect with people where they are. And that's so important as we are going to be talking right now about connection. Simran, we welcome you. We might be welcoming your toddlers, and that's okay as you're on parent duty right now. As your wife, a hospital physician, is saving lives in New York City. We're grateful to your wife being on the front line, and we are so grateful to you for what I know will be giving us a hopeful vision for a more loving, a peaceful, and a more just world. Thank you, Simran.
Thank you, Cheryl. I really appreciate that. I have no words to really express my gratitude for what you do and what this group does. I come in as somebody who is an outsider to this conversation, and somebody who has been observing and just so grateful for this important work in community building. I think what I'll share today is something that might resonate with some folks there, both in terms of the experience, but hopefully also in terms of the vision. In 2012, my life was transformed forever when a white supremacist entered a Sikh place of worship in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, and opened fire on the congregation. And he ultimately took 6 lives before taking his own. And it was really this deeply painful moment for our community, for our family, for me personally. And as many of us know, sometimes it's in these deep and painful moments that we find inspiration. And for me, the inspiration really came through watching the community's response. When first responders came in, the local Sikh community insisted on serving them. They insisted on feeding everyone who came to give support. They insisted on cleaning the whole place themselves, bloodstains and all. And throughout this, they constantly announced a feeling of jaridikala, which in our tradition refers to this idea of optimism and gratitude tied together. The Oak Creek Massacre survivors, they lived this idea of jaridikala more than anyone I'd ever seen in my life. And it was in the wake of a historic tragedy. And I admired that from afar, and I wanted to access that. And so when I got to meet the survivors soon after, I asked them the question directly. How is it that you're finding optimism and feeling gratitude in the midst of such real traumatic pain? And their responses consistently pointed back to the core Sikh teaching of connectedness, what we call ikonkar. The survivors would tell me that everything is divine, so yes, we're in pain, but how can we be unhappy when God lives in our pain too? And their answers reflected the story that my grandmother used to tell us when we were growing up, that when the 5th Sikh Guru, Guru Arjan, was being tortured before a public execution, he sang, Tera kiya meetha lage. Your will is so sweet to me. And so I had long regarded this story as beautiful and powerful and potentially transformative, but it had always felt unattainable for me and for everyday people. My sense was that feeling joy while in extreme pain was an ideal for only enlightened people. It wasn't for us. And yet here I was in 2012 sitting face to face with everyday people who felt deep human pain, who lost their loved ones, who watched their loved ones be murdered in cold blood, and at the same time, they exuded this very real spirit of joy and optimism. And so seeing the power of this outlook made me want to know how I could capture it for myself. And here's what I learned. In my check-ins with the survivors, I asked them two questions in particular. I said, at what moments do you find yourselves most at peace? And are there specific practices you engage to help cultivate this feeling? And as you would expect, people shared a diversity of practices and moments that they felt instilled optimism and happiness. But also within their diverse perspectives, there's one theme that every single survivor mentioned, and that was gratitude. Now, I found it strange that a community grappling with such pain, one of the most lethal hate crimes in American history, would lean into gratitude as a response. And as I kept digging into this, people explained it to me. A young woman in her 20s said something to me like, we have so much to be thankful for. I have my life. So many people I love are safe. Yes, we lost a few people, but it could have been so much worse. Someone must have been looking out for us that day. And I was struck by this perspective, both because I hadn't thought about it that way, but also because I knew she was right. And so the takeaway for me in these conversations is that gratitude is not something that happens by accident. Gratitude is something we cultivate with intention and practice. The more we bring it into our lives, the stronger it becomes. And adopting gratitude as a practice can change how we see the world and how we experience life. Because practicing gratitude enables us to find the blessings and the silver linings all around us that we're missing, that we're choosing to ignore. Gratitude can be an attitude, but only if we choose to make it one and we practice it every day. And this is the key to accessing this feeling of Jaridigala, of constant optimism and gratitude. So here's what I want to offer you today. There are three practices that have been transformative for me as I've adopted this concept in the last few years of my life. The first is to begin a daily gratitude practice. Take 5 minutes every evening to reflect on your day and list 3 things. Physically, write them down. 3 things for which you are grateful. Next, identify a gratitude partner with whom to share your daily reflections. Connecting over gratitude will make the process more enjoyable, and the additional accountability will make the practice more sustainable. And third, take an action of selfless service each day. Because when we serve others in our own times of need, we are extending beyond ourselves and connecting with others where they are. And that ultimately will take us away from our self-centeredness and towards connection. Thank you.
Thank you, Simran. So you remind us that it's not about me, it's not about you, it's not about a Muslim, a Jew, a Christian, a Sikh. It's about a collective us. It's about connecting. And in these terribly scary times, the opportunity for us to connect is stronger than ever before. So what we want to do right now is to give each of you an opportunity to connect. You don't have to do anything. Don't leave where you're at right now. In a minute, a pop-up screen is going to show up telling you that you are being moved into a breakout room. There will be 4 people in each breakout room. You'll be randomly assigned. As soon as you move into your breakout room, we ask you to please introduce yourselves to one another. Assign a timekeeper. That timekeeper will keep track of each person's time, approximately 2 minutes. And we ask you to please share 2 things. 1, what inspires you right now to raise your voice? What is it? And 2, share any successful experiences that you have personally had that really triggered you to raise your voice. I want to let you know that the chat meeting, the chat button will be enabled. It's at the bottom of your screen. We ask you to please share comments, share feedback, share messages with one another, with us. I was just notified that there will be 7 to 8 people in a breakout room. So you'll have about 12 minutes. So I ask the facilitator to please very closely keep track of time. Please don't be offended if you get cut off. When the time is just about up, there will be a pop-up screen telling you that, and you will automatically be brought into the main room where we will move into the next part of our session. So please take the time to connect. It's our hope that you will forge at least one new relationship. And if you could do that with 7 others in your group, that would be wonderful. Share your contact information and make a commitment that you will follow up, because the time is now for us all to come together. Enjoy your breakout session.
Welcome back. I understand there were some serious technical difficulties, and I just want to say thank you for sticking with us. This just reminds me that here we are, final days of Ramadan, that it was all about patience and compassion, and we're so grateful for your patience and your compassion with us and with each other. The chat function is now enabled, and if you would take a moment to locate it at the bottom of your screen, we would love to hear from you. Specifically hearing what kind of takeaways, or at least one takeaway that you're walking away with. Take a moment to think and type it in, because there's something powerful about hearing from one another. It gets distributed, the pressure, the weight on all of us. And it's actually an opportunity for us to remember that we're really not alone. So as the comments come in, I'll share them out loud, and you can personally message me in case you would prefer that not everyone see your comment. My name is Aziza Hassan, and you'll find me hopefully easily. So some of the comments say, bringing like-minded people together. Wow, they are flowing fast. This is overwhelming. Talk about gratitude. We are not alone. Each of us are we are the power. Friendship building is key. I love the opportunity to meet and share with others. The awareness and people not talking, they are actively doing. And for some, you're also expressing some frustration that it wasn't working. And so again, I am so grateful that you were willing to stick with it and that you're still here at this moment. And then finally, we're feeling connected to people who speak out in different ways and in different circumstances. As you see the comments continue to come in, because it's just an overwhelming waterfall of gratitude. Thank you for modeling the beauty of what is possible in this world. We hope this opportunity has been a way to connect and enrich the start of a new beginning. At New Ground, we believe that transforming community is possible through the power of relationships. And that's why we bring Muslims and Jews together to work through the hard conversations and figure out where we can invest together. And so if you feel so inclined, please message your chat room participants and share your information to follow up. Or perhaps you want some more time to think on it. But regardless, we thank you for taking time to be here with us. And now we're going to shift to our final prayer and final words. Imam Majid is the executive director of the All Dulles Area Muslim Society Center, Adams, in Sterling, Virginia. He currently serves as the chairman of the International Interfaith Peace Corps and is the former president of the Islamic Society of North America. Imam Majid is a national voice and a model of compassion in action. Imam Majid.
Bismillah. In the name of God, the source of mercy and the giver of mercy. I ask God Almighty to bless all the effort being made today and the discussions in how to stop hate and hatred in our world. May God Almighty make us, all of us, be agents of peace and create an environment where our children love one another, care about one another, regardless of our ethnic background, regardless of our faith. who believe that humanity is one family. May God Almighty bless all of this effort that made by all of you and continue to bring about understanding in this world and to stand together against bigotry and hate. May God Almighty give us a peaceful world that we, all of us, appreciate and celebrate, and so that our children and grandchildren will enjoy. Ameen.
Imam Majid, thank you for raising us up spiritually. Our workshop is coming to a close. And today was all based on the premise that the Sisterhood of Shalom was founded on. You know, it's real easy to hate someone you don't know. When you know them, it's more difficult. And when you care about them, when you love them, it's almost impossible. And that's what being connected is about. That was the start of where we were moving to today. When you care about someone, you will do whatever you have to do to protect them from hate. We invite you to do what we do at the Muslim Jewish Advisory Council, of which I'm a proud national board member, at New Ground, at Interfaith Ventures, and at the Sisterhood of Shalom. And that is build those relationships, see the world through each other's eyes, see the world with empathy, and go out there and raise your voice. Raise your voice against hate. We are one in solidarity, and we are one in resilience. To our Muslim brothers and sisters, we wish you Ramadan Mubarak. May the light of Ramadan remain in all of you, in all of us, and carry us through for a long, long time. We send a special thanks to all of you that participated. As Aziza said, we are sorry for any technological glitches. Thank you for being part of this important day, and we thank you in advance for moving us all into the future. Please go to our websites, Sisterhood of Shalom, which is sosspeace.org, Muslim Jewish Advisory Council, which is muslimjewishodvocacy.org, muslimjewishnewground.org, and interfaithventures.org. We would love to have all of you. Please be a part of our organizations. Thank you to Harold Messenger and the Interfaith Music Project of Philadelphia for that inspirational song, which kept us going. And a special thanks to Architect, to Greg, Jackie, and Dave for making this all work today. On behalf of the Sisterhood of Shalom, Muslim Jewish Advisory Council, Interfaith Ventures, and the New Ground, be safe, be healthy, and go out there and be the change the world needs today. Thank you.